Hi, thanks for coming to the Count to 10 podcast. My name is Simon Sanborn, and I'm a behavior-focused teacher. And I started this podcast to kind of see if I could help people get better at communicating, see if we can understand behaviors and how those affect how we communicate. Because if we can understand behaviors and the messages that they send us, I feel like we can communicate a lot better, and we might not have as many issues and problems as we do right now. As a society, I focus on students, I focus on kids, but I do talk and work with a lot of adults. And the behaviors and the messages that they send can inhibit communication no matter what age you are. So I think it's important that we continue to find tools, share ideas, and make some headway so that as a society we can continue to keep getting better and keep getting along with each other. And we all know and feel probably that's a pretty tough time for that right now. And I'm not sure quite, off the top of my head why, one individual over another sets those things off. But usually it's about ideas and, a lot of tribal ways of looking at things. And it's understandable. We are a tribal animal. It's that simple. So I will talk a little bit about that today. And hopefully talk about some issues that our community and our school district are struggling with right now. But first I want to talk about, I finished a book and it was called The Boys in the Boat. And it was about the 1936 8-man crew team that beat Hitler at the Olympics. At the time, I guess, crew was a very, very big thing. So I am not as familiar with it. Crew was in my high school in Virginia, but it wasn't, I had a friend on the team, and but I didn't participate myself, but I knew it was a rowing team. So when I read this book, it was pretty amazing because I had a very, elementary kind of idea of what rowing was. So this book was phenomenal. And the reason why it was so good for me personally was that it really talked a lot, it interwove these rowers' lives outside of their time at the University of Washington and in Seattle. And it talked about what they had to go through as individuals in between their school years and how they had to live and make money. And I think about people now, or I should say our kids now. These gentlemen were in the summertime, hanging off the sides of mountains and jackhammering granite to help build dams and things to earn the money to go back to school the next year and row again. That was their goal. So kids being abandoned at 15, their parents going, "Hey man, sorry, I gotta go. Here's the house. Hope everything turns out okay." And I have some pretty wonderful teenagers at home, don't get me wrong. But the idea of them being able to do something like that is really scary and is something that I can't wrap my head around very well. But, it was the end of the Great Depression and things were very different. So no judgment there on these parents, but a very different time in the world. And this is pre-World War II. But it really showed me what human beings are capable of when it comes to their compassion and what human beings are able to do when it comes to their understanding of each other. And it was a simpler time, obviously. They didn't have, cell phones and social media and all that wonderful stuff. But, and I'm saying wonderful sarcastically, of course. But they were able to see through problems that just really caught me off guard how thoughtful they were about how to solve these issues and how to become a team and how when they were all doing the things they individually were supposed to be doing and who they were as a person on the inside, when all those things clicked. Seeing them row, allegedly, was, just watching, a ballet on water, which is pretty wonderful. And they do talk a lot individually in this book, and it's a true book. It's being made into a movie right now by George Clooney, I believe. And it's just incredible to see how these people's own personal lives and internal struggles affected how it applied to their rowing. And once they realized that how they felt about themselves and how they felt about the other people that they were in the boat with, or the shell as they called it, things just started to gel. So there was this balance in their life. And so George Pocock is a famous boat builder. I was reading this book and it happened to be down by the boathouse at the University of Iowa. And I just put my head against the glass and kind of looked inside because I was right in the middle of this book and wanted to see what the boats looked like and kind of where Iowa had their things. And one of the boats, or some of the boats, said Pocock on the side. So this guy who helped build these boats back in the day has obviously built a company around it, and he was older man then, so I'm sure he's long passed, but it looks like his company is still around, which is an amazing thing because his philosophy is strewn throughout this book. This gentleman's quotes are at the beginning of every chapter, and they're all about life. They're all about how you approach life and how you interact with people and how you get the best out of yourself and others. So pretty amazing character, and I guess there's a whole entire book about him, but I'll give myself a little break from the crew racing and maybe jump into that at a different time. Maybe this summer is a better opportunity. The reason why I brought that book up was he talked a lot about harmony and balance, and within that harmony and balance, you find this rhythm. You find this rhythm to your life. I know a lot of people who are really, really disciplined, and I am not, who wake up every morning at a certain time and they get this amount of work in before they even start their day. And then they get to work and they kill it and they do all these awesome things and they come home and they have another schedule. And that schedule that they have is just like this rhythm in their life, and it's pretty healthy. We can also develop rhythms that aren't good, right? We come home and we don't do anything. We come home and we turn on the TV, or we come home and we have a drink, or we come home and get frustrated and angry because we got to start making dinner and the house isn't the cleanest we want it to be and our kids aren't doing what we need them to do. And you can see how that rhythm gets off. It feels off just saying it out loud like that. Probably because I'm not very, like I said, being disciplined is not my forte, but I'm trying to get better at it. I'm hoping by 55, I'll have a much better idea than I do now at 51. But I did like this idea of this rhythm and harmony to life that they had in this boat and applying it to us. And I just really appreciated that for us to be able to see a bigger, broader idea expressed in this way. I then happened to be listening to a podcast with Glennon Doyle. She is a inspirational speaker, has a podcast called We Can Do Hard Things. She was a teacher. And she was on with Brene Brown, who everybody knows who Brene Brown is. And it was a pretty awesome conversation because Glennon Doyle, who works with her sister, was on there with her. And then Brene Brown's sister, who helps her run her company and helps kind of manage her life a little bit, work together. And these two sisters work together. And to hear them all talk, you're like going, oh, they're sisters. No wonder they get along. No wonder they're successful. They just got this rapport. It's pretty neat. And they were all pretty honest and open about the idea that this is not an easy thing, that they have to work very, very hard to keep things going forward the way they do. They have to be very honest and upfront with each other. They have to kind of like know what each other's thinking. That causes conflict. And I guess I only know that because listening to them talk, one sister would say something and I do this, this, and this. I'm trying to look at these things. And then like Brene Brown would say, yeah, in my head, I am the opposite. I'm going. I have so much pressure, so much stress. I don't want to do it anymore. I want to quit, all these things. And there's the sister who's just kind of like buoying her along down this river of life. So it was really cool to hear them talk back and forth and have different ideas and different philosophies about some things, but also just be very in sync with each other. Again, that like rhythm, that harmony that they've developed. And I am going to relate it back to that rowing thing once in a while, because it really is this harmony that we're looking for. When we don't have that harmony, we don't have that rhythm in our lives, we feel like something is off. And I was talking to a friend at work, and we were discussing, what is it that we fill our lives with? What do we fill our bodies with? What do we fill our minds with? I've always related it to being, I think I've said this in the podcast before, maybe there's a place for, Housewives of Orange County, or some of those reality shows that are just pretty much all about conflict and drama and anger and resentment and jealousy and all these things. I guess maybe human beings like watching those things being displayed the way they do. And I mean, I've watched them as well, but I now kind of consider them as like fast food. I consider, TikTok fast food. I consider Facebook fast food. I consider, not feeling my body. I consider, obviously physically eating fast food. drinking alcohol, those things are not gonna benefit me. You know, a little bit of something might be okay. But if my rhythm in my life and my discipline is I'm not doing anything for my body, I'm not putting anything good in my body, I am then filling my mind with a bunch of, I call it trash or fast food, then that's my life is going to be expressed that way. You know, I'm not going to work very well with others if my way of thinking is Orange Housewives or Housewives of Orange County, right? If that's my go-to of like, oh, did you watch this last night? So-and-so said this, and so-and-so said this, and so-and-so said did this. My first thought is, so then how are you going to turn around and relate to your kids? How are you then going to turn around and relate to your students? How are you then going to turn around and relate to your teachers or your executives or your admin? If your thinking is being inundated by goofy TikTok things or a fail video on YouTube, or do you see what I'm saying? Like, how are you ever going to get in this rhythm of like, boy, I have so much gratitude for the world I'm in. Look at these amazing people that are around me. Look at this amazing child that I have in my life. I am sure there are people out there that can do that can watch all that stuff and then come to work and be a different person. I just know that it's not going to work for me. How I fill my mind and how I fill my thinking each day is going to impact how I interact with people around me. So that's kind of my thought about how we should be interacting with each other. So in the second part of this podcast, I wanted to kind of talk about the board meeting that we had here at Linn-Mar this week. And I watched all of it, and a lot of us watched it. And if you need some context or are unsure what we're talking about, we had some parents that were very upset with the passing of a bill that was going to be placing, it mostly focused for transgendered students. And it was the idea that the big uproar was were parents not being notified of a plan for their child starting in 7th grade. So 7th through 12th grade. And just hearing that, we're going to cut parents out of your child's, not education necessarily, but like plan of transitioning if they're a trans person, instantaneously rubs people the wrong way. Rubs me the wrong way too. And I'm about as liberal as you can get. So that wording was not good. And then you also have, as you know, and the main thing behind that was, why are parents being cut out? And I needed answers to that too. And on the opposite side, you have trans kids who commit suicide at a much higher rate than their cisgender kids, because they don't see a reflection of themselves in the society and world around them, and they don't feel supported. So that bothers me tremendously as well. That would make me very much say that we need to be doing this for those students. I have a very important, my best friend in my life, his daughter is trans and is turning 18 and becoming a young man here soon. And we're all very supportive and thoughtful about that. And I don't think you would find too many people that would be against that idea. So where I bump into things, and where I shouldn't say where I bump into things, where I struggled the most was the inability of us to be able to find common ground as a society, as a community. So you had a group of people that were very, very upset because they did not want to be cut out of why their kids would be talked to, a plan be put in place, things like that, and then be cut out of it. Now, like I said, that sounds bad to me. Once we figure out that, hopefully, and again, I don't know if this is a for sure thing or not, and that's part of maybe some of the struggles is the uncertainty involved, is in individual cases, if there is a student who feels like they cannot come out to their parents, they can't tell their parents that they are a girl trapped in a boy's body or a boy trapped in a girl's body, and they need to start expressing themselves for who they really are. If they have a family that is not accepting of that, that is, going to kick them out or harm them somehow, then we absolutely would want to be making a plan and then finding a way to resolve this. And again, I don't think you should make a plan and totally cut somebody out. This is somebody's child. Even if you don't agree with the way they're thinking about their child, it's still their child. And so there's got to be a way to figure these things out. And I'm going to assume that there are. I know the school district that I work for at Linn-Mar. I know the admins that I've worked for. I know all the principals that are in this district, and they are fantastic people whose sole job that they know is to make sure students are successful and to take care of students. So nobody wants to cut anybody out of this. I think it's an individual case-by-case thing. That being said, I'll lead it to that if there is a plan put in place, we'll just set aside for a second, table the idea of parents not being involved, which I do have an issue with, but by a case-by-case basis, I'm sure we could solve that problem for sure, okay? And that's the idea behind it. We're not gonna just cut everybody out. In certain situations, we might need to delicately bring families in to understand things better. I don't know, okay? I've never been in these situations before, but I'm trying to paraphrase and kind of break through some of the things I saw as struggles. Part of that was, if there is a plan in place, if I am transitioning and I am now, I'm expressing myself and saying, hey, listen, I've been a woman trapped in a man's body for a very long time. I need to start living my life the way I want to. I want to start being able to use restrooms. I'm going to start being able to use locker rooms, because that's the gender that I fit into now. The main concern for parents was you'd have a grown man like me walking into a bathroom, right? You'd have a grown man like me walking into a locker room or something, or a student in this situation, right? I'm using myself as an example, but say we have a student who is identifying as a female, but he is biologically a male, and now they want to start using bathrooms and locker rooms. This is a plan set up for them, and it's very deliberate and very careful and intentional. And you would not just have some guy walking into a bathroom saying, I identify as a woman now. That's not possible. And a lot of parents were very worried about that. And they had examples of people who had been raped in locker rooms because someone who identified as a woman but biologically was a man had committed a crime. I understand the worry about that. That makes complete sense to me. My biggest issue, and I'll go on the record by saying that I wish the board had not passed it. I wish they had tabled it. I wish they had tabled it for one reason only, and that was there was a lot of people there, a lot of concerned parents who were expressing themselves, many really articulately and very thoughtfully about what their worries were. And I think tabling it and coming back to it would have, at the very least, shown that we're thoughtful and we're thinking and we're taking your ideas and your voices into account. And I think that would have gone a long way. But I think the idea of, or focusing on just men being in girls' bathrooms and in their locker rooms, and that being a common thing that would be happening, I don't think it's very realistic. And I would hope that people could see past those things. So going back to what I said in the very, very beginning of this podcast about finding ways to get along, finding ways to find harmony, being aware of how tribal we can be, being aware of how, I don't want to say thoughtless, but not being understanding to those around us. And so I had this crazy thought experiment that kind of popped in my head. And I'll tell you, I'll just read it because I don't want to ruin it, because I did take time to kind of write it down. I think that tribalism is destructive, but that being said, I thought of Daniel Siegel. And maybe people will be surprised that I bring it back to Daniel Siegel, who's one of my heroes and idols when it comes to understanding behaviors and working with children. But he has this very simple tool called Connect and Redirect. I've talked about it before on this podcast, but I'm going to apply it here. I think that we can find a way to connect people with what their fear is, right? Because all of this is fear driven. Okay, whether it's fear because I don't want my trans kid to commit suicide because they are living in a society that seems to not care for them and want to polarize them somehow. It's fear driven for these parents who are concerned about the safety and health of their children in locker rooms, not to be assaulted. Legit fear driven thing, right? All of this is based around fear. And I think that if we could answer and help solve the fear problem, we're going to solve a lot of the problems, okay? A lot of people were talking from a religious point of view at this, and I'm not sure what you do about that. As a not very religious guy, that's a tough one for me, okay? I think that society is very different. I heard a term the other day, I think it was called, I'm going to blank on it, but that's okay. It's a word that meant somebody who pulls the truth out of all religions. I know for Christians, that's not going to be very acceptable because you follow one guideline or you're in real trouble. But I do feel that society is made up of a lot of different people. And if we can handle the fear-driven part, then maybe we can let go a little bit of the restrictive religious part. And the idea of me putting myself in somebody else's shoes, right? Well, let me finish the connect and redirect. Find out what the fear is. What's the fear? How can we solve that fear? Or, wow, I really hear what you're saying. You're very concerned that your daughter is going to get raped by a man who identifies as a woman if they walk into that locker room. Yes, that is my number one fear. Well, let me show you how we're going to make sure that does not happen. Okay? Same thing. I am upset that you are not telling me what your plan is for my kid. That makes me scared to be uncertain about my child. Makes me very scared and fearful. So how can you solve that problem, right? We're not going to cut you out. This will be an individual case-by-case basis. If parents seem to be upset, angry, dismissing the other child, maybe we might have to find some ways around it, but we are not going to cut you out of the situation with your kid. Okay, so they can start connecting with what I'm feeling and redirecting it to either an answer from me or we're working on it or something, right? Help calm that fear, because that's what's driving this. It's fear. And the fear of I don't want my son to lose their life, right? I don't want my son to lose their life because they're identifying as somebody else or as a different gender. It's not worth it to me to lose my child over that. That's about as pure a fear as you can get. So, and suicide is a real thing in our society. So those fear-driven things are really hard. And I think the more we can connect with what people are feeling and then redirect the idea to how we're going to solve that problem, what we're going to put in place to help people, all those pieces so that we feel better, right? This connect and redirect is, I have my lower part of my brain that is supposed to be helping me survive. So it's sending me signals, right? And fear is fear is the main one. It's fear, so that I can survive. So fear is going to be firing off my brain. And it's something that I can't control. I can't control that. But if I can learn to use my frontal cortex when I am in those emotional moments, I can then maybe reconnect and understand better what the conversation is. So if my fear is spiking off because you're telling me that my child could be raped in that locker room, I'm not going to be thinking very clearly, as maybe we shouldn't be. And I need to be able to calm that part of my brain down so that I can think and say, okay, if I don't want that child to kill themselves or feel ostracized because they're a trans kid and they want to use this locker room, what are you going to do to ensure the safety of everybody? Tell me that. I think that's a doable thing. So the last thing I wanted to talk about was doing a thought experiment. Put yourself directly in somebody else's shoes. Put yourself into the position of, you have to stop. You have to get out of that brain, that mindset of fear-driven things and say, okay, what is this person trying to tell me? I have to be understanding, right? I never have to agree, but I can be understanding and see their point of view. You'll have a lot of people that if you want to ask them about me, friends and family, they'll tell you that I am a pretty open, laid back, nice person. I'm a pretty liberal guy. Wouldn't call myself a leftist by any means, but I'm pretty liberal and towards the center of things. Some of my best friends and people in my life are conservatives. And because I like people, right? People are not their ideas all the time. So, or what they think, right? So, people I love tremendously in my life who believe the polar opposite of me in some things, maybe even the transgendered issue. I don't know. But I have to be able to see them as a person and understand where they're coming from for something, and then be able to state my ideas and them understand me and see where I'm coming from so we can find some common ground. It's never going to change. Conflict is always going to be there. So we've got to find a way to move past these things. So if I put myself into the shoes of a trans kid who is now feeling like I am stuck in a box and I can't get out, and I need to find a way to start expressing myself, because if I don't start expressing myself and finding a way out of this, I'm stuck. And I'm not going to be stuck for very long because I'm going to end my life. I can't keep doing this all the time. It's unfair to me. My mental health is suffering because of it. I need to find a way out of this. As a 50-year-old white male, drop myself into the shoes of somebody who's going through that. I don't understand it, and it's hard for me to conceive or conceptualize, but I can try, and I can try to be understanding to that point of view. I can put myself into the shoes of somebody who is a 60-year-old white male who says, that's not the way of life that I want my community and my school to be promoting, is focusing on trans kids. I can put myself in their shoes and try to see things from their point of view. That might gain me some understanding. Absolutely, I can very easily put myself in the shoes of a parent who's concerned about a child being raped. I have family and friends in my life who have suffered sexual assault, and it's devastating to people. It ruins people's lives. And it's not hard for me to put myself in their shoes and say, yeah, tell me what your plan is. Tell me how you're going to make sure everybody's taken care of. And that was probably the biggest one. When I heard people say that, they got up in front of the board and they were saying things that had nothing to do specifically with one idea or another, but said, please tell me you're going to keep our kids safe. Please tell me that is your number one goal, is to keep our kids safe. And again, that's what I wish they would have done. I'm sure the board, who's made up of a lot of awesome people that I know personally, they should be able to easily say, this is how we're going to keep your kids safe. So that's why I wish things had been tabled. Not because I didn't agree with them, but because sometimes we got to give some things space to let people kind of wrap their heads around, have some understanding. Who knows? Maybe just as many people would be upset with it afterwards, but you still considered it and gave it some time. So try that thought experiment. See what you think. It is kind of weird. It's kind of hard, but the weird and hard part is that it gains you understanding, and starting to understand where somebody is coming from. It's in conflict with what you think about in your own head. And so it can be kind of a strange thing to go through, but it's, man, is it practical. And I do it with my students all the time. I can start getting frustrated about a student not following directions and getting things done, because my frustration is fear-driven, right? I want them to be successful and live a good life, and they got to get through school to do that. I got to step back and press pause on that fear and say, okay, what do they need right now? Maybe they need a kind word. Maybe they need somebody to put their arm on their shoulder and say, hey, I got you on this. Do the best you can. I've got your back. You need help. I'm here. Anything you need, right? That can be enough sometimes. And the last thing I'll leave you with, which kind of, I had a friend say this to me about the board meeting, and it kind of struck me in the moment, and I'm not sure if it's all applicable, right? But in the moment, they said, imagine if this was the late 50s, early 60s, and this was a conversation about Black children being let into a white bathroom at a high school, or a white locker room at a high school. Would it be the same? Are we talking about rights here? Are we talking about freedom here? And it caught me off guard. I was like, whoa, that's really good. That's really good mind bender for me, because I was like, we can, you have the arguments of, well, this is an unholy way of being, so they shouldn't be able to go in there and do what they need to do. I'm afraid somebody's going to attack and rape my daughter. it's pretty weird to kind of have that stick in your mind of, okay, if I was talking about obviously, if we're letting black girls into white locker rooms, we're not going to worry about somebody being raped. And of course, our society is very different now. But if you put it in these contexts, like, we don't want these people mixing with each other, right? We don't want trans kids mixing with each other. We don't want, if we're thinking of it how many years ago, we don't want black kids mixing with our white kids. Is this applicable? I don't know. I don't know really, but it did kind of catch me off guard and made me think a little bit more about it even. And again, what I did was it gave me consideration. It gave me the opportunity to sit back and see somebody else's point of view. It gave me the opportunity to sit back and see the way somebody else looks at something, and gain me understanding. I have no problem with somebody who is ideologically assigned themselves to a way of thinking. If they can explain to me what their understanding is, I'm going to be like, okay, works for you, man. I get it, right? No matter what it is. I think we can do that for each other in lots of areas, and this is one of those areas. I heard a lot of wonderful things said on both sides in this argument, and all I can think about and all I thought about during the 4 hours of this 4+ hours of this board meeting was, we have got to find common ground. We have got to start using common sense and understanding for each other. And we have got to start finding ways to not be so polarized. Being really careful not to say some of the things that I would want to say about giving examples of presidents and political ideas and things like that. But we really do get ourselves locked in to some ways of thinking. And like I said, I'm a pretty liberal person, but I can have conversations with just about anybody about politics, because I can understand when they say something to me that I don't agree with. All I have to do is say, I understand where you're coming from. That doesn't mean I agree with anything. It means I understand where you're coming from. You're a person, I'm a person, and we can find some understanding together. I think we can do this in this situation too. I know it's deeply rooted in some ideas and ways of thinking, old and new, but I think that the idea that we want children safe and children successful is the main goal. And that's why I decided to talk about it on here. I hope it doesn't cause me too much grief, because I think I've taken kind of a middle road on it. But I think the main idea is we can be understanding and we can be thoughtful to each other. And I saw a lot of people that I knew at that board meeting, board members, directors, teachers, things like that, parents, a lot of parents I knew were talking there. And I felt like I understood and they all got across what they were hoping to share their ideas and their feelings about. So that's the main idea of why I wish the board hadn't passed it, was let's just give this more time. Let's gain some more understanding. Even if we don't get everybody to get on everybody's side and understand everybody's points of view. Excuse me. We can still find some ways to find some common ground and calm people's fears and make this fantastic community continue to work well together. And and this is kind of sad to watch us all be at battle with each other, because they're me and I'm them and we're all in this together. So I just want to make sure we're trying to find ways to, to put it simply, love each other, love and care for each other. That's what we're here for. And that's where I think that harmony and that rhythm can come back into our lives if we start saying, okay, I love this person. How am I going to find some common ground with them? I see myself in him. I see myself in her. I want to understand better what they're talking about. All right, this is a long one. Sorry. I just felt like I needed to say some things about it. And I think that we can continue to get better at it. I didn't, I was saddened by it. But I always see opportunities, and optimism is something that I'm really good at. So it's not hard for me to go there, but I can definitely still understand people's concerns about what's going on. So thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. I know you had to take time out of your life to listen to me talk. Please share any ideas, concerns, points of view with me. I don't have comments open on YouTube because I think it's kind of pointless just to hear, I'm sure that people would say nice things too, but a lot of garbage can be said on there. So I just leave it to email. So Simon, SYMON, period, Sanborn, SANBORN, @gmail.com. Send me an email. Any questions, any concerns, any ideas, any tools. This idea of this podcast was about sharing ideas, sharing tools, sharing perspectives, books you've read, podcasts you listen to, articles that have dropped into your inbox. Anything like that you think would be good to share, please send me an email. You have constructive criticism, different points of view, I'm down for that too. Just don't make them hateful. Don't make them crappy. You can get your point across to me. You can say just about anything you want to me to help me see your point of view and do it in a way that's productive. And that's what I teach every day, is communication in a productive way so we get what we want. If you want me to change my mind about something, approaching me nicely about it is going to be the key. I said to a lot of my students, I said, do you think it's easy to listen to you yell when you need something from me? No, it's not. No, it is not. It's not easy to pull what you need from me from yelling. So when you get yourself calmed down and you can talk to me, man, I'm going to be able to see what I can do to help. Same thing goes here. Please, if you have things to say to me, do it in a way that helps me understand your point of view the best way possible so that I can share that with people. So thank you again for your time. Take care of yourselves and take care of each other. Have a good night.